Hello, this is Robert Hunt, Superintendent of Chagrin Falls Schools, and today I am with Mrs. Sarah Reed from the Intermediate School. Mrs. Reed, how are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm very well, thank you.
I'm doing well. How are you handling the change in environment?
Well, I'm getting used to it. Definitely getting used to it. I'm not going to lie, it's been an adjustment, but overall, we're all hanging in here in our house. So, yeah, it's been good, and honestly, we're all very well.
So we all have our kind of challenges with this. How is it for you personally, kind of managing, what you have to do with your staff and with work, and having kids running around and family around? How are you balancing all that?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to lie, it's been tough at times, and we're definitely adjusting. But I like so many of our families, I'm trying to balance working at home and managing the kids and doing our family stuff. My husband's home too, so we've all been home for over a month now, so we're very close.
Hmm.
And it's actually been very, very fun to have this time together as a family. My days were very busy, and I've been trying to manage by building a routine. So we try to hold to routine here as much as possible. And on school days, that means that we have school time and we have work time, and then we have family time. So that has really helped for us as a family to be able to get all our stuff done, and for me to feel a little bit sane. Um, there have been times though where I've definitely felt discombobulated, restless. Um, I feel like I'm working all the time, either in meetings or with my kids or doing this and that, but I'll end the day and not feel like I've accomplished a whole lot. And that's hard. I'm not used to that. I'm used to kind of walking out of my day saying, hey, I was able to do this, this, and this today. And there have been more days where I have not felt that way. And that's been an adjustment for me personally, just to kind of manage that. But at the end of the day, we're here, we're healthy, we're together, we're supported, and so we have a lot of blessings. And I kind of keep that at the forefront of my mind when I start to feel those feelings of uneasiness or frustration.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of the people I've talked to, it seems like we're working harder and more than we have in the past, and that idea of schedule doesn't really apply because you're constantly responding to different things that are happening to and around you, and you're balancing, the kids and everything else. It certainly makes it challenging. What type of things, from a just a work perspective, give everybody a kind of an idea of what types of things is a building principal doing right now in terms of interacting with your staff?
Yeah, well, my main goal every single day is to connect with my staff and as much as I can with students. So I start every single day by going into Google Classroom, and it takes a while. I have, believe it or not, over almost 100 Google Classrooms, because I have each teacher has multiple classrooms, and then I have some teachers who have individual classrooms because they're working with individual or small groups of students. So I spend my beginning of my day going through that, and it's been great because I'm able to see all the cool things that the teachers are doing with kids. I'm able to see student work, and I do look at that. If I'm able to, if I'm lucky, if the timing is right, I join in on those Zoom meetings too, and try to actually do face-to-face time with the teachers and with the kids. So I do that. That's a big part of my morning. And then I'm connecting with teachers and staff on other ways. Typically I would be walking in the hallways, I'd be stopping in classrooms, I'd be chatting with teachers in the workrooms, things like that. And obviously can't do that here. So I'm relying a lot on my phone. I'm texting, just checking in. How are you doing? How are you feeling? What do you need? How can I help? Those kinds of things, because that's, to me, my main purpose is just providing that support for them. Um, but I'm also in meetings, not much different than the regular school day. We have admin meetings with the admin team, and I'm meeting with grade level teams each week. But those meetings are really crucial because it is those connections and having those conversations that's really important in this kind of environment, because you do feel disconnected. So the more that we can connect with each other and talk through what's working, what isn't working, and talking about personal things as well as professional things, I think is really helpful and really needed right now.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that it's, I don't know, less than a month ago that we launched into this. And, I'm so shocked at how well we were able to pull this off, and talk about the virtual launch from your building's perspective. What were some of the challenges? What surprised you in kind of, with this immediate, call on a Friday, we're going to be, launching and going digital by next Wednesday. Just talk a little bit about that from the intermediate school perspective.
Yeah, well, I guess I would just say overwhelmingly how proud I am of our staff because everyone just dove right in. I think, um, we made it our priority to figure out what was the easiest way and the best way to start this off for our kids and for our families. And we looked at it, tried to keep ourselves from being overwhelmed by it by just looking at, what do we have? We have 8 days to start. That's how it was when we started. We had 8 days to figure out how can we provide digital learning for 8 days. And we kind of kept that as our perspective. And that helped because it helped us sort of frame the work that we wanted to do. We had a lot of conversations about how are we going to connect with kids? What are we going to focus on academically? How are we going to present that to kids? How are we going to ease the minds of our families and make sure that we were not adding stress? So those are kinds of things we talked about initially. And we put things together. It's been a learning curve, to be honest, and that's been a challenge. There are so many platforms and programs out there that, for us, it took some time and is continuing to take time to kind of figure out what is the best one to use. How do we best leverage our technology so that we're able to, provide a really meaningful learning experience for our kids? And how do we make sure we maintain those connections with them? It's real easy to post assignments and to post textbook pages and post documents, but it's really about those interactions that are really important. So as we've worked through this, we continue to have those conversations and are trying those new things. And I guess that's what I'm most proud of because for a lot of our teachers, that's was overwhelming and scary. And there was a lot they didn't know. So for our teachers to take those risks and to jump right in, whether it works or doesn't work, and just kind of learn as we go, is something that I've been really proud of, and it's been good to see. So I think that has been a challenge just because it's hard to take that risk sometimes.
Yeah, I think in time of crisis, you kind of realize who's around you very quickly. And I've been so impressed with our administrative team, with you and the staff at the intermediate school. Sorry. But I think what's even more amazing is how receptive people are to wanting to continue to grow this and make it better for kids, kind of as this has been extended, and realizing this could be, even for the rest of the year. The willingness to change and grow. One of the things we did last week was give a survey out to parents. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you saw in that survey and working with your staff that, kind of lead to potential changes in how we're operating.
Yeah. I think at the intermediate school, we face a few unique challenges just in general because of the age group, and that was reflected in our survey results as well. We've been really cognizant of trying to balance our workload. And for our kids, they're very, very different. Our kids are very, very different 4th through 6th grade. There's a lot of growth that happens over those 3 years. So what is appropriate for 4th grade may not necessarily be what's appropriate for 6th grade, whether that's workload or how work is presented or how much work there is, all that kind of stuff. And so one of the things that we've been trying to look at and talk about in this last week or so is really about how we make adjustments to that and find that sweet spot that really addresses our students' needs academically, socially, and emotionally, and make sure that the learning experiences are meaningful. So that's one piece. And that's hard. That's hard. We've had some really great feedback from parents, but on this piece alone, workload, I'd say we've had, half as many people saying that the workload is too much and the other half saying it's not enough. So, how do we find that sweet spot? So we keep, making tweaks and, receiving feedback, and hopefully we'll find that place that works for our families.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So what about challenges? I mean, you've mentioned a few of those challenges. What's been maybe the most significant challenge, either for you personally or for the building in kind of moving in this direction?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I think from a personal perspective, and I speak for myself, but just in conversations with other staff members, it's a lot. This is a lot on us, and it's a lot to take on, and it's a lot to hold on our shoulders. We care very much about our kids and our families, and this is not how we want to do school. We want to be with our kids, so it's been hard to in some ways, I don't want to say accept that, but it's hard to kind of wrap your head around the fact that we're not able to do that right now. And we have to kind of push forward in this digital learning environment that is not ideal for us, and just sort of reconcile ourselves to that. And to keep, at the forefront, what's most important is the relationships with our kids, and with each other. So I think that's a challenge, just, kind of, making sure that we're leveraging that technology to be able to continue to do that. How do you maintain those relationships with kids? How are you connecting personally with them, and making their experience worthwhile, and make it meaningful as a learning experience? So I would say that's I guess I sort of transitioned from personal to professional there, but it really is kind of one and the same, because for educators, this is personal. What we do is very personal. It's what's in our heart. And so, that's been a challenge, just to kind of work through, what does this look like? How do we make this really meaningful for our kids? And how do we stay connected with them, because we do care about them?
So I wonder, and your thoughts on this. What will be the impact in a positive way? How do you see this impacting education going forward? So assuming we get through this crisis and we're back, sometime in the fall here, what do you think the impact of this will be on teaching and learning in our district?
Well, I would say one of the positives of all of this sort of struggle is that we are coming out of this with some really great skills, and related to technology. There are so many things that our teachers are doing that they've never done before. Those are the things that I celebrate. Those are the things that get really excited about. Teachers planning virtual field trips, kids posting their work on things like Flipgrid and Padlet, and then sharing those with one another and providing feedback to one another. It's a whole new way of doing that kind of thing that we've not really used before in our classrooms. So I can see some real opportunities when we, go back into the traditional classroom, to be able to still continue some of these great technology pieces, to kind of provide that for our students. So that's one positive I think of. And I think that, honestly, it's also just that lesson learned of how important it is, these relationships are, and this time is. And that's just a constant reminder, as we're all stuck at home, in this kind of fearful time, just remember what's important. So those are my two takeaways, I think.
Yeah, I think it's reinforced something we've always talked about. The blended learning environment, engaging technology, breaking down some of the walls in the traditional model of school is something we aspire for, but we don't aspire for this,
No,
right?
a little too much.
Yeah, it's the relationship and connection piece is such an important part of what we do, and you've done a good job of kind of explaining that. So it's been a couple of weeks now, but the legislator took some action and kind of pulled some requirements away from our students and teachers in terms of testing. Any thoughts on that impact for you in the intermediate school?
Yeah, well, it's a pretty big impact, because we're one of the most tested buildings in the district. We have tests throughout all our grades. It kind of hit me yesterday that we were scheduled to have our first assessments tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday this week. We were supposed to do our English language arts state tests. And so when I realized that that's not happening, of course, that kind of was a shock to the system in a sense. But yeah, not having state assessments this year does have a huge impact, and that stress in a sense goes away. I think there were quite a few people who were relieved in a sense. But I I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed in some regard because I was really looking forward to our kids getting an opportunity to show the world all this awesome growth that they've had this year. And it is one way that we do measure that. It's not the only way, and we've talked about that a lot. You know, these
Yeah.
tests are not the only measure by any means, and I think that gets distorted often in the media and so forth. But for us, that was something that we were looking forward to. We've worked really hard this year, and really, especially with our intervention program and things like that, to really work on growth. That's been our mindset this year. And so that was one way that would have been nice to show that. But again, there are so many more important things, and we've got other ways to show that growth. And so when it comes to not having testing, I guess that's something that in the long run is not as important as all these other things that we're going through. I will say, though, that when I think about next year and kind of taking a look back on this year, it will be those other things that will really stand out to me more so than obviously when we look back at test scores. So.
Yeah. You bring up a lot of really good points, there. And let me ask you the question that, what do you miss most about maybe just the normalcy of school?
It's a really good question. Gosh, I miss the kids, and I miss the staff. Even though we're texting and we're FaceTiming and things like that, it's not the same. There's a real energy in a school that you don't get here. There's organic learning experiences that happen, those teachable moments, things like that, that are just, it's really the cool part of learning. And it's great to see. And I don't get to see that here. We don't get to experience that. I was talking to a teacher the other day who said, yeah, I made an assignment and, the student did the work and I looked at it. And, the next time I had a chance to do face-to-face time with that student was a couple of days later. And I realized that the student misunderstood some things and I had to go back, and it was fine. I was able to go back and explain, but in the classroom that happens like that. I walk by the room, I see it, I address it, we talk about it, we move on. So it's just a very different way of doing what we do. So I think, I miss those, cool experiences that we see with kids all the time, and the interaction, the energy that comes from being in school with the kids and the teachers.
So, you've stressed a lot the importance of trying to stay connected, and we're all doing that with Zoom and, different technologies along the way. But we're also personally all dealing with stress and pressure and, the uneasiness that this is providing, not only from teaching professional, but personal economics and all of those things. And that, that also impacts students and makes them sometimes feel some of that stress and anxiety. And even this isolation, plays a part of in all of that. How or what would you recommend to a parent and or a student that's feeling, I'm isolated, or I'm feeling down, I don't want to use the word depressed, but this isolation is causing me some problems. What suggestions do you have for that student?
Yeah, well, again, relationships are so key at this age level. I mean, our kids are just starting to, make connections with the outside world and kind of growing emotionally and with their understanding of the world around them and things like that. So those relationships are really key. And kind of, it's a scary world, and you start to see those things. So obviously, the more that we can do to reach out to them and to connect with them is important. From a parent perspective, if you see your child is withdrawing or is struggling, I would just recommend and encourage you to reach out to us. We are talking about students all the time. How can we support families? How can we support these students? It might be something as simple as helping them get organized and helping them to kind of go through their work and helping them to kind of figure out kind of the organization of it all. But it also might just be the emotional part. There is a scary time. It can be stressful. It is stressful. So, what can we do to help that? So I would say first and foremost, if I'm a parent and you're seeing your child struggling, let us know, so if we can figure out how to help you and help the child. And from a kid perspective, I would continue to encourage them to connect. When it comes to academics, join those office hours, join those Zoom meetings, even if they're not required, make that FaceTime, because it's an opportunity not only to connect with an adult, but also with your friends. There's other classmates there, so you can talk and interact with them. So I would say, even if it's not required, join in, and kind of put yourself out there. I think that's really important.
Great. Well, Mr. Reed, I appreciate you taking some time today to catch us up in the intermediate school. I appreciate everything you've done and the staff has done to help our students get through this and continue their education. So thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for talking with me today. Have a good day.
All right, you too.